You are listening to the Postcast, presented by the Locked On Senators podcast, following a 5-3 loss to start a road trip through Florida to the Panthers. Yikes, this one was ugly defensively. We'll get into all that, and then stay tuned for the Postcast after dark. I'm Ross Levitan alongside Brandon Pillar. Pillsy, your initial reaction following that gong show?
The Sens were not awake to start this game. I mean, when you get outshot 26-4 in a road game, we heard Mark Mathot tell us, Ross, this is a green light road trip. Well, maybe those are some of the effects we're seeing, a bright green light there to start things off. But you would think the green light would be after this game, so hopefully that doesn't happen.
That was tough. That was tough right from the beginning. The Ottawa Senators franchise record is 27 shots allowed in a period. That happened in December of 2015. Ironically, they let in 3 goals in that game as well, and 2 in the first period. This one was about as ugly as it gets. They lost every single puck battle. They barely had the puck in the offensive zone. I wrote in my notes at one point that it was 5-1 the shots. Little did I know how bad it would get after that. Like, the Sens had to feel lucky that it was only 2-0 at that point.
I wouldn't call a good goaltending lucky. I feel like Anton Forsberg did a really good job there, and he's the main reason they stay in these games. And these are the games that Anton Forsberg thrives in, Ross? Like, give him 40-plus shots. Oh, he's ready to go. He's going to give you a chance to win, and it's insane that the Ottawa Senators had a chance to win at the end of this game. And I know we're going to get into it, but also pretty insane in a 5-3 game that's a high-scoring game without 2 disallowed goals thrown in there as well. Like, geez.
Yes. So let's take you through the scoring summary. It took 8 minutes. Somehow, Anton Forsberg held the fort for 8 minutes before Carter Verhaeghe just came right down Broadway. Almost an NHL video game type goal, eh? You get it. You get the puck with a skill guy over the blue line. A little spinorama. How'd he do? Matthew Tkachuk makes a nice play, but everyone's puck watching.
Yep.
And they're looking at the TSN reel of Matthew Tkachuk spinning around, and nobody notices Verhaeghe coming right down Broadway. Take us through your thoughts on that one.
I mean, as I like to do, Ross, I think a lot of the credit for this goal should go to the primary assist, because what Matthew Tkachuk does there is he draws the attention of Branson. Brandy comes up to challenge him. And then Timmy, instead of noticing that Brandy's challenging him too, he decides to get in there too. And Matthew Tkachuk sees this, does a quick spinorama, and you got to tip your cap to a pass like that. Sure, you'd rather not have Verhaeghe just wide open walking down Main Street, but when you get beat like that, that's just a good play.
And then it's not quite a first NHL goal, but it's the first goal of the season for Alexander Barkov. I was a little surprised when I saw that. Matthew Tkachuk assist on that, just a shot from the half wall. 2-0 after the first period, but Ottawa got life with a power play with 40 seconds left at the end of the period. They actually had a little bit of an opportunity at the end of the period as well, but then Shane Pinto to start the second, like just what we saw in preseason, and he gets the goal. Bumper play from Giroux, Jake Sanderson with the other assist there. It's 2-1, and then 3 minutes later, Brady Tkachuk gets on the board on a partial breakaway, his 6th of the season. Assists go to Bratherson and Nick Holden. Verhaeghe makes it 3-2 Florida at the end of the second period with under a minute left. Pesky momentum goal. We thought it was over then because the shots were so lopsided, but Nick Holden actually brought this one back to a tie at 3 midway through the third period. But Brandon Montour finishes off what was just an extended offensive zone shift. He puts Florida back up, and then Matthew Tkachuk on a very unselfish play from Anton Lundell gets him the empty netter. But Pillsy, that was after Matthew Tkachuk had a goal disallowed due to offside. Before I get to that one, my big takeaway here was, and it all kind of worked out in a way because Ottawa ends up using their challenge and getting it. Did that first one not look, the one that ultimately counted, did that not look like it was offside from the second angle?
Yeah, they showed that replay, and it was like, oh, okay, yes, the Sens are going to challenge this. And then pucks dropped. I'm like, no, whoa, hey, like, that's massive. Like, if they get that overturned, you're right back in this. But I guess, I don't know, maybe the video guy didn't want to test his luck, or maybe they're obviously privy to more replays at a quicker pace than us. Maybe there was better angles that showed it. But yeah, you're right. That second kind of high angle that they showed, it really looked like that was offside.
What was your main takeaway after this? Because we haven't really in the postcast gone through scoring summaries like that. I do kind of like starting, especially on the weekend if people are busy and they're tuning in Monday on their way to work. Just a quick, like, who scored what. But we haven't really broken down goals, but I don't even know where to start. This game was so wild.
I mean, it all comes down to that slow start. Like, there's no way you can expect a team to win when you get outshot 26-4 on the road to start a game off. Like, it doesn't, like, Forsberg played amazing. You've lost way too much time that you got to catch up on. And although Florida, they kind of allow the Sens to push back a little, it's not like they stopped producing offense at that point. Like, there were still really good chances. I mean, they end up getting 57 shots by the end of this game. So they still have 26 shots in the next two period, or I don't know, my math is probably off there, but no, 31 shots. Yes, that's better math. 31 shots the next two periods. So you're averaging 15 shots again later on. So it's not like they were totally stifled for the rest of the game. And you can only handle so much, especially when you're looking, you don't have Josh Norris, you don't have Artem Zub. Makes it tough to mount a full comeback here.
How much do you think Artem Zub's presence was felt? Because it's easy to say quite a bit, but it shouldn't be this big of an impact.
I mean, top pairing defenseman. You can ask the Florida. I mean, I'm not saying Ekblad and Zub are comparable players, but you can ask what that does to a coach's time on ice and his overall game plan when one of your top guys on defense is out. And especially when you're looking at how weak that right side is for the Ottawa Senators, when you lose your most stable guy that plays upwards of 21 minutes a night, typically, especially with Thomas Chabot playing big minutes, that's going to have a major effect. Although I did think Holden looked decent in his time with Chabot, and just overall, I would say this is one of Holden's better games that he's played. So good that he was able to be a plug and play guy here.
There was one play, though, in the middle of the first period. It resulted in a 2-on-1 the other way. I think it was kind of no harm, no foul, but I was like, this is exactly why Nick Holden can't be playing his offside. Did you see he tried to, like, take a puck on the wall in the offensive zone on his backhand and just completely whiffed on it?
I mean, that's tough for anyone, but you hope a guy like Nick Holden, a veteran guy, that's something that he's done a bunch of times, and he's very familiar playing his offside. So you hope in moments like that he's the guy that's prepared. But it is a little bit more difficult. But yeah, ultimately the defense, I'm making excuses here. The defense is simply not good enough. And for Zaitsev to be playing that much is really unfortunate. But what's DJ gonna do here? Like, I don't think the game wasn't clicking for Branny, so you couldn't play him that much. You don't want to overextend Holden here.
No, there's no excuse. And, like, I kind of understood it with Derek Brassard, taking him from the press box and just plugging him in where Josh Norris was. You can't do that with Nikita Zaitsev. He's playing his, like, 180th game with the Ottawa Senators. He is what he is. He's a grenade when he has the puck on his stick, and defensively just puck watches. He can't pivot. He is a liability, and that he is the reason why people have negative wars. Like, you're like, wait, how can you be a negative? You have a legitimate impact on the other game that favors the other team. It's unbelievable how consistently awful he's been, and we still see him in the lineup. The Sens are 4-4 on the year, 0-3 with Nikita Zaitsev in the lineup. I'm not saying it's all his fault, but at some point you kind of have to crunch the numbers here.
Yeah, I mean, that's a telling stat. I'm not about to get on my hard hat and go to battle with you about whether I think Nikita Zaitsev is a positive impact on this team or not. That's an easy lost debate there. I just feel like this is a game that DJ has to look at and be like, all right, I tried having him out there for this long. He killed a lot of penalties, but it's not going to work. Either we need to drastically cut down his minutes. Like, I think last game, his minutes were 12 minutes of ice time or something like that. Like, if he's around there, that's better. Or you start looking at Belleville for an option here, because depending on how long Zub's going to be out, like if it's closer to 2 weeks rather than 1 week in that timeline, you can't keep doing this. It's not sustainable.
No, and especially this is a team that should have learned from 2 seasons of awful starts. And I'm not saying we're there. They're at 500, even though the East's a complete dogfight, and there's not many teams that are below 500, but we just can't keep seeing this. It's a mistake where the definition of insanity comes in. They're just doing the same thing that they did that put them in this bad position, and it's the same problems. How much do you blame DJ Smith here? Because we're seeing some people turn on him on Twitter. We've been pro DJ guys, and not only because he came on the show, but in terms of getting the guys to work, but systematically, can't you adjust?
I don't know what the solution is here. I feel like this is more a roster issue than anything. It just goes to show that maybe myself included, we were too content with the way this decor is, because all it takes is Artem Zub to be gone, and that crumbles like a house of cards. And it's very fragile, and it's very dependent on Zub holding up that right side all on his own. And now that he's gone, even though it's a shorter term injury, it seems like it's going to be a major problem. And like here's the thing. So let's say maybe this is a after dark comment, but just something to chew on is if you bring up JBD or Lassie and they end up eating Zaitsev's minutes or fully taking them away while Zub is out, how much of an impact do they have? Like, are they able to support as much as Zub would? Probably not. So, I mean, it's obviously going to be better. It's going to be better than Zaitsev, but I'm just saying that it just goes to show how important Zub is to this team. Ross, I think you tweeted it out. If Dan Milstein wants to up Zub's contract negotiations, just send them the highlights of that first period, and you can see, okay, either fork out some big cash for this right shot defenseman, or here's your decor for next season. How do you like that? Like, that's all there is to it.
I just don't even know what we're doing here with Nikita Zaitsev anymore. It's like beating a dead horse, but then the horse gets up and starts spitting all over your food or something. Like, you're just like, hey, well, we have to address it again because here rearing its ugly head. And I don't know. I'm at such a loss. I was at a loss when he outlasted Connor Brown, where you add the sweetener usually to take the trash. You don't then keep the trash in your house and then take your car out back
to
the
trash
shop.
is starting to stink, Ross. It's getting smelly. It's starting to stink.
He's played way too many games for the Ottawa Senators. Anyways, again, we can talk about this till we're blue in the face. Nikita Zaitsev, -1, 4 hits, and that's kind of like the last thing I'll say about it is this was a game where they played from behind for a lot of it. Sure, they tied it up, but then for the first 11 minutes, basically of the third period, like, you're playing down, and still Zaitsev's getting more ice time than Eric Brandstrom. It's not like, and not that I think he's a good defender, but the team thinks he's a good defensive defender. They weren't even in a situation to play shutdown D. They need to push the pace and try to create something offensively because they were out puck possession in this game about 2-1. They had no scoring chances. It was embarrassing. And as Damien's pointing out in the chat, like, Jake Sanderson was the only positive player in shot differential at 5-on-5. Yeah. And yet Nikita Zaitsev's playing more than him. I know lefty righty and Shabbat again overplayed at 29 minutes and 16 seconds, but I just can't keep seeing this.
Yeah, it's not going to work long term. I think that's very obvious. And the thing is, Ross, I was looking at this game and saying, yeah, no Zub, this is going to be tough. But if you're going to go any decor to decor head-to-head matchup, it's this Florida Panthers decor you think you can take advantage of, even without Zub. They're without Ekblad. So utterly a disappointing start to this road trip, because now, Ross, you got Tampa waiting on the other side of this for you. Ugh.
Franchise record. So pat yourselves on the back, Sens fans. You just got to see the Senators tie their most allowed shots in a single game in franchise history. 57. The last time they allowed 57 shots was in November of 2013 against the New York Islanders. The time before that, it was 56 shots in 2013. Tough couple weeks. Those were in the same few weeks. 56 shots in that game, and then 54. We remember that one, the one in Vegas. Remember where Anderson had to stand on his head? He only allowed 2 goals. Remember they lost in a shootout.
Yeah, but I think that was one of those games where we were kind of cheering for the rebuild at that point. So it was like, okay, slow down, Andy.
Yeah, no question. But at the same time, man, like, this was just infuriating to watch. Shocking that the Ottawa Senators even had a chance to win this game. Tied with 5 minutes remaining. Are you kidding me?
I know. In hindsight, Ross, I wish I took a look at my betonline.ag bets and tried to cash out at that moment, because it wasn't getting better than that. I was hoping maybe it would go to OT and you get a little luck there, but no such luck from our friends over at betonline.ag, Ross. And it's always a roller coaster when you're sports gambling, but if you're going to do it, head to the trusted online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. They've got all the latest news, scores, odds, player performance props, totals, game over, under, spreads, money line, puck line, whatever you like, they got it. Check it out. And it's not just hockey. They got basketball, baseball, football, soccer, golf, boxing, UFC, whatever your poison is, you can check it out at betonline.net. Guys, it's betonline.net where the game starts.
You are listening to the Postcast presented by the Locked On Senators podcast. Somehow, some way, they've added another shot for the Florida Panthers. So it is now a franchise record. It is now 58. So the title's wrong. It was 57 when we started, and now it's a franchise record. Congratulations, everyone. You guys sat through it. And
they just had to do that, eh?
We're a team.
Yes, and we are a team here on the Locked On Senators podcast. We appreciate that. And yikes. What a tough. Hey, if you allow 58 shots, are you going to win the game, Alfie?
Probably not.
No, yeah, you probably aren't. The Ottawa Senators didn't tonight. We'll incorporate more of those drops as we go along. But we finally
that was a well-timed one, the Alfie one. The We're the Team is a little quick and quiet. I don't know if it hits, but yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll hit Alfie again. Hey, Alfie, did I hit that drop well of Pierre Dorion?
Probably not.
Yeah, no, you're right. I probably didn't. All right, we are going to get to a Sen Central standout. I'll race you there. I think I know who it's going to be. But before we get to that, like when you look back at these games, the divisional games, they're so important. You can't give up in one period what you produce in the entire game, as Ottawa finished with 26 shots on goal. All right, I got that out of my system. Now give it to me, Pillsy. Give me some positivity or leave me the low-hanging fruit. Feel free.
Ross, if you are passing it, I am snatching that low-hanging fruit and running because I don't have a lot of options. I'll let you scramble to try to find someone that was even decent in this game. Well, actually, no, there's another guy that was decent, but it doesn't stretch much farther than Anton Forsberg here. I mean, 53 saves on 57 shots. A .930 save percentage in a game where you allow 4 goals is that's pretty telling of how this team was. And Forsberg does what he does in a game where the Ottawa Senators give up a lot of shots. Like I mentioned, he seems to thrive when he's seeing a lot of rubber. He's in the game. He's keeping sharp. He made a lot of really great saves. And honestly, a couple of the goals, like especially that final goal that kind of ices the cake, the Montour one, that's a result strictly of the Sens defense not being able to clear out a loose puck. And when you let a guy like Alexander Barkov sneak out that loose puck, he's going to find someone. And Ross, I don't think I've seen a more emphatic game-winning goal than that. Like that slap shot hit the post so hard, the crowd, the horn, the song, like that, like obviously as a Sens fan, that was sad, but as a hockey fan in the moment, I was like, yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, especially it was the end of a long shift. But you're hoping, you're praying, you're like, okay, they even hemmed, like Gudas started that shift in the defensive zone 2 minutes into his shift, and they were able to win that faceoff. Ottawa has gotten better in the overall percentage of their faceoffs this year, but they're still losing timely ones. Even I noticed the start of the second period, you have 1 minute and 35 seconds left on the power play, and Giroux loses the faceoff at center ice. All of a sudden, they regroup. There's another 20 seconds. Like, they can't keep making these same mistakes. Got to fix it.
Yeah, and I'm not really on the let's start shaming DJ side of things. I mean, we're still early in the season.
He deserves it for Zaitsev, though. Like, what is he expecting something different from Nikita Zaitsev? Like, let me honestly ask you, because Dylan Hetherington was the guy that was called up. Who would you rather in the lineup?
Hetherington or Zaitsev? That's what I mean, Hetherington, because I think it's a lot easier for DJ to play him legit third pair minutes and not get carried away. I don't know. I know you kind of want me to jump on this and pour gas on the fire. I just feel like sometimes the game flow happens. Like coaches aren't like, he's not mathematically thinking of time on ice, and it kind of gets out of hand sometimes when they're killing penalties. I don't know what to tell you. I'm just trying to think of why it ended up this way with DJ Smith. I'm trying not to believe that DJ purposely had Zaitsev as the defenseman with the second most amount of ice time. I'm trying not to believe that. So I don't really know where to go from there. But I think the thing with DJ is he never gets to have the lineup he thinks he's going to have. Just it doesn't work out for him. And I know that sounds like an excuse, but no Norris, no Zub. That is a big loss, especially going up against a team that I know is a lot weaker. But these guys won the President's Trophy last season. Like there's still the remnants of a really good team here. So it's unfortunate, but I'm not panicking here because I don't anticipate seeing Zaitsev playing that many minutes is going to continue.
It doesn't get any easier. The Sens on Tuesday. Next up, it's the defending Eastern Conference champions. Not once, not twice, but 3 straight years. You really thought there were some points to be had today, this afternoon, against the Florida Panthers. They did get goals from Shane Pinto, from Brady Tkachuk, and from Nick Holden. But I'm going to the back end. Jake Sanderson, just such a treat to watch. He's going to be a standout on many occasions here. And it's funny how quickly we can forget that this is a guy who just had 15 stitches in his lip, who's 20 years old, was just eligible for the World Juniors that happened 3 months ago. And he's playing at the NHL level like he's been doing it his whole life. And I know that he's grown up around it with his dad playing 1,000 games in the league, but he is so good at the little things out there. I thought Hamonic actually had a pretty decent game, all things considered, compared to the others defensemen on this team. Like he was kind of helping him out a bit, but Jake Sanderson controls play. He was somehow a plus shot differential at even strength. Jake Sanderson, shot attempts.
That's insane. Wow.
They got out attempted.
Wow.
How much in this game? The numbers are astounding. He was 51%, 15 shot attempts for, 14 against. The next best defenseman, percentage-wise, so Sanderson, 51%. The next best defenseman was Thomas Chabot. Let me get this here. I need to see. Sorry, Hamonic?
Yeah, I was going to say it should be Hamonic, yeah.
But even still, so this is even more glaring because they played a bunch of time together. Hamonic was at 40%, 14 at 4 and 21 against. And Sanderson 15-4. So basically, they probably had just about as many on together. And then when they were off, Sanderson had like 9 and then 7 less for Hamonic, or 7 more shot against. Nobody else was above 31% where Chabot was. The distinction between him and the next best player on this decor was enormous. Enormous in this game.
Yeah, it really seems, Ross, that, and again, small sample size, but the way things are progressing here, it really seems like Jake Sanderson is going to emerge as the top defenseman sooner rather than later. Like, that's just how things are going here, which is saying something with how we regarded Thomas Chabot in years past.
Yeah, Chabot's starting to hear it from the fan base a little bit. And I think this is another conversation where it's like, yeah, sure, you're playing Nikita Zaitsev too much, even if he's perceived as a top 20 defenseman around the National Hockey League, which I think is probably a fair range to start thinking about slotting him in. Like, he's always at his most effective between 24 and 26 minutes. Played 29-15.
Yeah, it's too much.
In tonight's game. Why not give Sanderson 2 of those minutes? And he'd still play. It'd be 25 for Chabot and 23 or 24 for Sanderson. And then we're not even talking about Eric Brandstrom, who played 13 minutes, and still, when they need a goal late, he's the guy out. So it absolutely blows my mind, Pilsy. And we'll get into this more in the postcast after dark because we want to save some for Monday's show. We've got Ian Mendez coming back next week on Locked On Senators. We've got another great Sen Central citizen for you. And will we have Mark Method on once again? Of course, if you missed it on Friday, Meth joined the show and said, you know what? I'm going to do this more often. So we're excited to have him. Great reviews for that episode already. We're also doing a little something new too. I had some fun, threw on the shades. I found my old golf hat, so I threw that on. Just had the Florida vibe. It was like 18 degrees here in Winnipeg today. I had a gin and tonic with a nice fresh lemon, a nice fresh lime in there. I was feeling so good for this game. And as a goalie-friendly show, yeah, I appreciate watching Anton Forsberg do his thing, but 58 shots I could have done without.
Too many shots.
That's your overwhelming recap here on Locked On Senators. Do not give up 58 shots and expect to win the game.
Yeah, it's unless they're like 2-1 games, you're not going to have a lot of luck here when it gets up into higher scoring. That's
It
tough.
really is something. All right, let's save the rest of our breakdown on this one because I want to like sleep on it and then watch the condensed game, watch a few shifts here and there, and get some more deep analysis into the goals against, how they all went down, and how it all ended. Though, like to bring it all together was just getting caught out there for too long, and then when they came at them, they just got hemmed into their own zone. Shocker. Next thing you know, Brandon Montour from the high slot. It almost looked like Pinto's goal against Montreal in the preseason, eh? Like almost like a knee down, like snapshot, like half slap shot type thing.
Yeah.
And you just got to give credit where it's due. Like they earned that goal. Like you're not sitting here saying that whether the refs stole the game or anything like that. They got absolutely beaten to a pulp. Like this first period was worse than the second period against Minnesota, and that's saying something.
Way worse. Yeah, way worse. And Ross, I hope this ends up, and it should end up being the worst period of the season.
Perfect place to end the postcast. The worst period of the season, and I'll go so far as saying hopefully that's the worst game of the season in terms of puck possession and deserve to win a meter. Let's put it that way. I know Money Puck does that, and often I laugh and say, haha, you got sensed when they won, when they get outplayed, but this was outplayed and then some. We'll get into it more in the chat. Stay tuned. And if you're listening to this in your car, in your commute, you can always go back on YouTube and catch the postcast after dark. But for Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. Stay in the chat, everyone. We'll be back with the postcast after dark. All right, you're listening to the postcast after dark. Pillsy, what a shit show that was.
Oh,
Yeah.
yikes! That's I'm gonna try to start every podcast after dark with that sound effect because it comes in crispy. And you know what? Sometimes you lose a game 5-3 and get outshot 20-6, but that's life. Life as a Sens fan.
Life is pain, as Sean says. We're really starting the postcast off feeling real good. Lots of talk about Tim Stützle in the chat right now, Pilsy. Where are you at with him?
Yeah, it hasn't been what I expected, but at the same time, that line of Timmy, Brady, and Drake has looked really nice at times, and I think Brady and Drake are still playing well, so they're going to elevate Timmy here. But Timmy does this, right? Like I feel like the last couple seasons we go through ebbs and flows. Like he can be really hot and really cold. He's still putting up points at a decent click if you all things considered, but yeah, I would agree with Jeremy. He needs to step it up a little here.
So in what ways can he step it up? Like I'm noticing that he's forcing it a little bit through the neutral zone. And that was kind of the scouting report on him, right? Like sometimes he's got great vision overall and like in the offensive zone, but it almost feels like sometimes when he gets the puck coming out of his own zone, his exits, he gets the horse blinders on. He's like, I'm going to take on 3 guys. I can do it. And sometimes he does have the skill to, but it's still not a high percentage play.
Yeah, I would agree. And Ross, I've really noticed that he's been getting bumped around a lot. Now, I don't mean like big hits or getting destroyed or putting himself in dangerous positions, but
Dumba got him.
What's that?
Dumba got him against
Minnesota. Yeah, Dumba did. Yeah, but Brady answers the bell for that, and that helped out big time. But I more just mean like when he's transitioning or pivoting or whatever, he's always bouncing into guys and losing his balance, and then he's kind of out of the play for a little. Like it seems like he's not very like sturdy on his feet. Like he's just too like wobbly, and I'm not calling him a diver. That's not what I'm saying with this. I'm just saying it seems like it's very easy for him to get off balance, and then he's a step behind. And like you mentioned, when Timmy's not clicking, he tries. It's like, okay, I've taken one step back. Instead of taking a step back to even myself, I'm going to try to take 2 steps, and I'll take on a couple players and make a big play, or it'll result in a terrible turnover. So I think he needs to simplify his game and try to be a little more sturdy on those blades of steel out there.
You know who else used to kind of look like that?
Who?
Mika Zibanejad. He looks all right now.
Yeah, yeah, fair, definitely.
Took him a couple of years though. Like he was playing center, and even though he's a bigger body, he was still pretty like thin, and it took him probably too long enough for Sens management to move on. But to me, it's like now you look at him and he's strong in his feet. I think it'll come for Timmy, and it's
Yeah,
just too bad because you hear about all the offseason training, like, oh, he's ripped. Everyone's talking about how good he looks, and at the same time, there's a really good point here that I think it was Sean made. Yeah, Sean makes the point that like he didn't score 14 games. The first game he scored on was that one win in November. Remember where it was like his own rebound and he
yep.
got it short side. But it was that last, I think it was a 40 game sample size. So I think it was closer to half the year, maybe 35, 36.
I think it was like 33. Didn't he have like 32 points in 33 games? Something like that.
Yeah,
That
right
rings
around
a bell
that
for
point
me.
per game mark.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was unrealistic to expect him to pick up on that right away. You would think with the better line mates, even if it's not DeBrincat and Giroux, you'd still rather be playing with Drake and Brady versus who he was playing with last year. But maybe it's going to take a bit of growing pain to get through that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We need to continue to remember he's a young centerman in the NHL, and the extra size should help him out here. And hopefully, with Brady and Drake still looking good, he gets a boost here. But it has been a bit of a slump. Yeah.
Like we're waiting for DeBrincat to kind of pop off too. And again, this guy is just an automatic when it comes to hitting the over in shots. Like he's still really putting it to it. I'm not putting any blame on Alex DeBrincat. I think yes, you'd like him to probably finish one. Especially there was one on the power play where I think he kind of fanned on it, and you're like, oh, like that's one where you'd like your sniper that you're paying to put the puck in the net. You'd like him to have that, but the puck felt like it was bouncing a lot out there for both teams. Like I'm not saying that's why they lost. Like there is no excuse after getting pumped the way that the Sens did. 58 shots after the readjustment again. It's like that's crazy. And then they blocked another 13. Or sorry, Ottawa blocked 15. So that means math 73 shot attempts for the Florida Panthers and 39. 73 to 39. Yep. Wow.
Too many. Again, too many.
Yeah, yeah. And how about Joe Bell making a good point? And first I'll hit on Joe's point. Well, one, I miss Norris. Yeah, don't we all? But at least 3 months. And I think based on what Garriock was saying too, and like what Derek Brassard, who they mentioned on the broadcast, has had 3 surgeries, like just get the surgery. Like don't battle back. Like no.
The only way you consider it is if it's looking good and the Sens are already in the playoffs. Like
yeah. No,
but he probably has to make that decision soon. No, so I guess like how would you like he can't have that kind of foresight.
Well, no, and you'd think the only reason like he's financially set, like it's not like he's playing for his next contract. You know what I mean? And the Senators also have that
that's
contract,
a good point.
And they're like, hey, we need you for the majority of this to be healthy.
Yeah,
don't put it in a situation because shoulders can get chronic, like they can get it so that it's easier to hurt it afterwards, right? It's not like a broken bone, it heals.
We've seen that. Yeah.
We've seen it time and time again. If there's anyone who should be experts on shoulders, it's the Ottawa Senators, based on what they've had to go through the last number of years. I'm in favor. Let us know in the chat. Like it's time, I think, to go under the knife and just get it taken care of until. The other thing that Joe brought up was with Tim Stützle, just saying that he fumbles the puck a lot. And that's something that he's probably going to have to improve. And he looks like a baby deer. You already touched on the Bambi. So did Brady Tkachuk, though. And you see him bouncing up and down the wing tonight. Like I think we have to remember. And do you think, here's a good conversation. Do you think that Sanderson coming in and looking so smooth right away puts a little extra pressure on Timmy? Not only of what Timmy did last year, but to be like, hey, Sanderson handles the puck probably as well as Timmy has this year.
No, I don't think so. I think they're on 2 different trajectories right now, right? Like Timmy's in his 3rd season here.
Sanderson's on the moon.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Timmy looks at it like that, if that's the question. And I think the thing with Joe talking about him bobbling the puck, that's Timmy getting ahead of himself. Like he's skating
Overhand.
away with the puck before he has the puck to skate away with sometimes. And that's where it's frustrating. And he's young. I think he's going to figure it out. I'm not too nervous here. And I mean, he's got to figure it out. Norris is going to be gone all season here. So if this team has any hopes of contending for the playoffs, Timmy has to figure this out.
Yeah, there's no other way looking around it, because like, even as good of a story as Shane Pinto's been, they need depth down the middle, and
That's the thing. He's only a good story if he's allowed to remain as a third line center, like Mark Mathot talked about. Sure, you want to get him more minutes and stuff, and I'm guilty of this myself, trying to get him up with Giroux and DeBrincat. Now you're not going up against third and fourth lines and second and third D pairs. You're going up against the big boys, and not that I don't think Shane Pinto can handle it, but it does have an effect.
Look at Cameron, though. He's not worried about Timmy one bit.
I like it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say, too, is I'm not worried about Timmy. It's just there's a lot more riding on Timmy, and he doesn't exactly have the luxury of figuring things out here, because if he doesn't figure it out, the Ottawa Senators are in big trouble.
The Ottawa Senators are in big trouble right now. Back to 500. Streaky season, hey? You lose 2, you win 4, you lose 2 again.
Yeah, but then, Ross, you start looking at those losses, Buffalo, Toronto, Florida. You cannot lose those games. You cannot lose those games. Or at the very least, you can't have them. You can't lose those games as close as they have been and not get any points. Let me rephrase it that way, right? Like the Buffalo game, that's a game you could have got a point. The Leafs game, they score late. You could have got a point here. My goodness, I don't know how you could think you could get a point here, but it was a reality that they were very close to getting a point, and you walk away with nothing. I think that's detrimental to this team getting a wild card spot in this tough Atlantic division.
And ironically, the one win they did get in the division, they're the only team that's beaten the Boston Bruins in 9 games.
Yeah, it almost seems like that's not going to matter. The Bruins are going to finish first place, and that doesn't have anything to do with getting in the wild card here. Whoops.
Yeah, Joe B. My, did I get that right? It's almost like Do-Re Mi type thing. But mentioned 0-3 on the road, all to divisional rivals. Divisional, nice little autocorrect able there. But let's see. Oh, here's a good conversation too. Leo bringing up Brady trying to be fancy with the game on his stick. He had no option to shoot other than, like, I think that was his only option. And it was a good defensive stick by Gustav Forsling. Got to give him credit for it.
I disagree there. That not with you, Ross, with Leo. I disagree with Leo saying that was trying to be fancy. That was him recognizing the only way I'm getting a chance on this is if I try this move, which we've seen him try in the past, and we know Matthew can absolutely nail
Matthew's pulled it off. Brady's tried.
That's the thing. It's not like this is the first time we've seen this. So he's been practicing this. He knows when the right times to pull it off and when isn't. Not scoring on them. Obviously, it doesn't look as good, but I feel like he's done it at the appropriate times. And he almost had it there, Ross. I think one of the moments I want to talk about is Joseph and Mott had a 2-on-1. And Joseph, the 2-on-1 wasn't an option anymore. And he goes to shoot it, but he goes to shoot it too late, because now everyone's identified it's not an option. And I forget who the defenseman was, but he gets a stick on it and it goes wide. And those are the types of chances you can't miss. And while we're talking about Mott, actually, that breakaway he had, perfect execution by Tyler Mott. Like, there's nothing else I would want him to do in that situation. It's just a great save by Spencer Knight.
I'm just trying to pull up the I don't even think they have it, because there were so many goals, so much just excitement. Yeah, they don't have it on here. I was looking at the initial game recap, because Leo was saying that it looked like he kind of had a forehand opportunity, but didn't go to it. If he did, though, he didn't have an angle, because he was coming in like tight from the left side, and he's a left shot. So
yeah, that's the thing. If he's a righty, he's got a chance there, but I don't think it's a lefty. He did. Yeah.
Interesting. Any other thoughts from you for this one, Pilsy?
I mean, you got to credit Forsey here. This is exactly what he is brought in, and exactly why he was given a 3-year deal. He may not be the flashiest, sexiest name out there, but when your team is down in the dumps and you're just getting absolutely hemmed in your own zone, he manages to keep the team alive. And if I'm the boys in the dressing room, I'm feeling pretty bad at this one. Like, he did everything. You had a chance, and you can't even get that point. Like I talked about, it's so huge getting a point there. So this is a tough loss. You're not going to catch this Florida team, or I don't know when they play again next, but you're you're probably not going to catch them as weak as they are right now, depending on when Ekblad comes in. So points left on the table in my eyes.
And going into a tough building to win in, Amalie Arena has been a house of horrors for the Ottawa Senators. We'll get into the stats on that on Monday's show. The Tampa Bay Lightning, though, here's a little spin zone. They're coming back from a trip out west, and sometimes that first game back is tough. They play in San Jose right now. Actually, I think they just lost, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, did they? I know it was close. One more thing
they won in regulation. Wow. Carlson, 2 goals. Kucherov wins it with 57 seconds left. So every other team so far, and I mean, that's only 2, but Sabres are tied right now. Red Wings are tied right now. Leafs are winning. Habs are tied. Like the Atlantic Division, you just can't lose games, let alone get blown out. Like it was a 2-goal game, but it may as well have been 5-goal game, this one.
Yeah, basically. And one more thing I want to say about Brady is, you think he caught on that goalies are checking the game notes that he likes to go low on the wing there? Because he goes top cheese, and Spencer Knight is not ready for that at all. I love it from Brady. What a goal.
Yeah, that's got kind of a remake of his goal in overtime against the Avalanche last year. Remember that breakaway where he went right upstairs and over the glove? I think it was Pavel Francouz, if I'm not mistaken, but whoever it was an absolute beauty. So Brady's got a few tricks in his toolbox as we head into Halloween, but hopefully we get a treat as Sens fans on Tuesday, because that one was tough. My final question I want to leave you with, and it might be stupid, but there's no such thing as a stupid question on the Postcast After Dark. Forsberg starts Tuesday, even after a 58 shots against him today.
Yeah, I think he starts Tuesday. I'm going to take a quick look at the schedule here, Ross. But yeah, and then you go back home. Maybe you get...
You're right. You're right. They got Vegas at home on Thursday.
Yeah, maybe you get Hellberg in up against Philly, or maybe Vancouver, just to give Forsey a break here, because I think you got to start giving Forsey some breaks, not just totally necessary ones where he legitimately cannot go, because I think Talbot's still probably a week or 2 away here, although it seems to be getting better. But yeah, Forsey starts next game.
All right. Well, we really appreciate it. Not only watching the show, but coming to the Postcast After Dark. I was just reading Jack's comment here saying, bottom line, it won't be till next year when we make the playoffs. We are not all that good. I think we've seen moments, Jack, where they've been good, and that's a part of the growing pains of this team. But still, I can't get over the potential addition by subtraction here, and certain players just having to play better. The third line, yeah, they got that goal late, and even the give and go there from Maude and Pinto, that was a great play right before the goal. Otherwise, the third line just got absolutely caved in this game. Like they just need these players to take 1, 2, 3 steps in the right direction. And if it's an up and down year, that's fine. But the ups have to be enticing enough that you can see what this well-rounded product is going to be for years to come.
I'm going to spin it a little different, Ross. I think they're going to have to be able to bounce back from the downs better than they have in past, because right, like the issue with last year was they're able to play hard up against some other teams, but when they start getting on a skid, it just went all the way down to the bottom. Like that was a November from hell, just to reference that. And so I think they're able to get by with how many good games they're able to play in, but can't let those bad games slide them down in the momentum to carry into the next game and have these losing streaks start. Like, once you start losing 3-4 games in a row, then you're in the hole, and making up for those games, you got to win 3 or 4 games in a row, which is not easy. You need to be able to pull off like 3-1-1 5-game stretches kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like you need to be able to balance things out. It can't all be all the way up, all the way down.
So you're an expert.
Yes, I am a schedule record expert.
Yeah, we should get Andy Sutton back on the show. He was actually an awesome guest.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't listened to that, obviously we get into the "Are you an expert?" thing, and he goes into that, and it's so funny. He was just an easy guy to talk to. That was a good interview.
So you're an expert.
Yes, you are an expert when it comes to who we've interviewed. We'll have more interviews for you guys next week, and we appreciate you making us your first listen every day. We'll be in the postcast on Tuesday as well. We'll get Marsh in the mix. I think he had some last minute shoot he had to pull, but we appreciate everyone for coming in afterwards. And Joe saying that Pinner may as well go to the second line. Yeah, I wanted to see that in the third period. Like, even just change it for the sake of changing it. Like, they're fine with changing their D pairs in the third period and throughout the game. Like, they started holding up with Shabbat. Somehow, number 22 ends up beside him. But, like, forward lines, it seems like it's pulling teeth to get them to change anything.
Yeah, I don't know why we didn't see some changes here. Maybe because DJ thought the momentum was swinging back and guys were clicking. I don't know.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll know more by Monday. Hey, but yeah, Wednesday, Send Central Citizen. Thursday, Ian Mendez. And we're going to keep a surprise when Mark Mathot will be back on the show. But for today, we say goodbye. We appreciate you hanging out, win, lose, or draw. Like, that really does mean a lot to us. The numbers obviously inflate when the team's doing well, but we appreciate you guys sticking with us through thick and thin. We always appreciate your comments in the chat as well. That's what we want to do in the Postcast After Dark, is really kind of engage with the comments. Make sure you guys know that we appreciate you very, very much here on the show. We'll talk to you on Monday. Go Sens go. I can't wait to ask for like cat emojis when DeBrincat goes off in the chat. Like, tonight, the only cats were the Panthers just dominating this game. The shots on goal, 58, Pilsy, for the Florida Panthers, and only 26, the Panthers' first period total for Ottawa in the entire game. Have a great night, everyone. Shake that one off. We'll be back better for it next week. And for Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Postcast, presented by the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team